Hi everybody, my name is Susie Q and I'm the editor of A Lust for Life, and I'm lucky to be here in beautiful sunny Melbourne, Southern Australia for 1 month. And one of the key reasons that I'm here is to connect with this great man, Jonni Pollard, who is one of the greatest meditation teachers that I've come across in recent times. Jonni has totally dedicated his life for the last 20 years to researching, to studying with some of the greatest living masters of meditation at this time. And he has very kindly offered to come on board the A Lust for Life train to help us explore what meditation really is, how it can impact our life, and to just open up the doors as to how we can really learn about how we can embed a practice of meditation into our lives. So thank you, Jonni.
Thank you, Susie.
So, Jonni, can you tell me, for those of us who haven't meditated, or those of us who have dabbled in meditation, what is meditation and why should we invest our time in it?
Well, the word meditation is a word that describes lots of different practices in this day and age. Generally, though, the commonality amongst all of the different definitions of what meditation is it's an exercise that is designed to bring us into the present moment so that we are more meaningfully able to connect with what's going on. The reality of life is that all there is now. The future is a concept that we're generally worrying about inside of our minds, and the past is a concept that's already been. And the real joy from life comes from our ability to actually be here and experience what's happening. And if we're not here, we're generally worrying about the future or regretful of the past. And so traditionally, meditation is a practice that enables us to be here now. But the big question is, well, why is it that we aren't naturally here? Why are we worrying about the future or concerned about the past? And the contemporary worldview on this is that we're simply too tired and stressed. Our bodies can only deal with so much stimulation on a daily basis. And the nature of our modern world is that it has us constantly on. We're on with our devices. We're on with filling too much of our day with things that aren't expressive of things that make us, relax, or filled with things that give us joy. And most often our days are filled with things that are creating wear and tear, causing fatigue and high levels of pressure on our system. And if we don't have a regime to recover from that stress, then it starts to have an impact on us. And there's a term for that. It's called the stress response, or the fight or flight response. When we're under too much pressure and we're too stressed, then our ability to be here in the present moment is very difficult. Neurologically, what happens is the part of the brain that's responsible for us to be here goes offline. And we trigger the back part of the brain, which is responsible for either killing or fleeing. That's why they call it the fight or flight response.
Yeah.
And it was a really great thing that was very handy a few 100,000 years ago when we were on the menu of the saber-toothed tiger.
Yeah.
And we had no means of protecting ourselves. It was really handy. But we're triggering this very innocently on a day-to-day basis simply because we're too stimulated and we're exhausted. So in a contemporary context, meditation is a technique that not only helps you be in the present moment, but it enables the body, the nervous system, and the brain to actually recover from stress and to recover from fatigue. And the beautiful thing is, when we create the right conditions for the body to recover and for the mind to get some repose from the incessant thinking that's always going on inside of the mind, then what naturally arises is this really effortless quality of being able to interact with life's challenges and demands, our creativity, our ability to connect, our compassion, our ability to think outside of our immediate demands, to think about greater things like, why am I here? What's this thing called life all about? How can I live a more purposeful, more meaningful life? When we're stressed and we're tired, it's very difficult to access that part of our awareness that brings meaning to our life. If we're just on the grind every single day, then it's tough. So that'd be probably the most sort of relevant context for meditation, I'd say.
And as editor of A Lust for Life, I'm dealing with huge amounts of information on a daily basis. And, a lot of my time, and a lot of our time is spent kind of in the external world. Your mind is out here sorting things, just dealing with your daily life. And I'm just interested as to why, it's just not a natural part of our existence on the planet that we're not tuning in more, that we're not kind of cultivating and nourishing our inner world more. Like, why is that? Why why isn't everyone meditating? Why isn't it something that's in our normal everyday life?
Yeah, well, the big picture perspective, I think, is that our condition has kind of slowly creeped up on us. I think there have been times and ages throughout our cultures where things like this, or particularly in the world, maybe not in Australian culture, we're a relatively young culture, but I think, particularly in the Irish tradition, there have been times where culturally these kinds of things have been celebrated, where we're celebrating the spirit of the land, the spirit of humanity, our creativity, our connection to something greater than ourselves, and I think culture goes through these flows, ebbs and flows, rises and falls of self-awareness and priority. And I think that our current state has just kind of creeped up on us, probably very quickly actually, given the advent of technology and industrialization and all of that.
Yeah.
And as a result, we just become indoctrinated into a particular way of being, which is, let's work and get stuff done and let's be prosperous and all of that, which was really wonderful for a period of time.
Yeah.
But now that we've got everything that we could possibly need and then some, we're finding ourselves at a great loss of connection to ourselves and to each other. We're finding that our, collectively around the world, the mental health in the world is at an all-time low. Given what we know about the world, our access to resources, regardless of that, we're still experiencing the highest levels of depression, highest levels of anxiety, a sense of disconnection, loneliness. Suicide is at an all-time high. And I think it's largely to do with the need of our time, which is to shift our perspective from being so externally orientated, that acquisition mentality. I've got to have the car and the job and the status and the paycheck and all of that kind of stuff, the handsome or sexy partner and that sort of external credibility in the world.
Yeah.
I think there's a significant amount of people in the world now that have done sufficient research to realize that there's no lasting happiness in that experience, and actually there is something more, and perhaps it's an experience within. And if we look back historically, we recognize that there are many traditions, wisdom traditions and spiritual traditions, that have absolutely understood this principle and delineated it in no uncertain terms about and warned us actually about the sort of the hyper accentuation of external acquisition and praise and worshipping. We worship the external, we worship people, we worship things, status. They warned us about it. And what they said is that we need to strike a happy balance between understanding ourselves, knowing ourselves, taking the time to nurture ourselves and feed our spirit, feed our heart, feed our yearning to connect in a meaningful way, and be willing to confront those things that might obstruct us from doing that, like fear and doubt and shame. A lot of us just don't reach out and connect because we don't want to expose our vulnerability, our humanness. But the reality is everybody's experiencing it. And if everybody could just collectively go, let's just let down our guard for a second and just take stock and admit where we're at. And try and build some sort of new meaning in terms of our social and cultural experience, then I think that we could absolutely elevate. And I'm finding in this time, meditation as a concept and also as a practice is a really powerful impetus for establishing this new dialogue and this new experience, not only with the self, but culturally, socially. People are able to connect around this idea of, oh yeah, you're going through the same thing as I am. Let's connect on that. Let's talk about that. And let's share our experiences and let something new grow out of it. Which I imagine is the fundamental reason why you created Lust for Life, right?
Yeah, for sure. And as you mentioned, so many people, there's a lot of misconception around what mental health is. It's often kind of put in a box over there, and we all have mental health, we know that, and we all kind of range on the spectrum. And I just know from my own life that, and I've only dabbled in meditation, and that's why I'm really excited to offer this to Lust for Life because we're really encouraging you all to really explore going into a deeper practice of daily meditation. But what I find is that quite often we look for answers outside of ourselves in the world. Everyone's kind of seeking externally from themselves, and often kind of answers, like, no one knows what's best for your own life other than yourself, I think I've found from my own experience. And the only way to access that kind of inner gold is to create the space, to create the practice, to actually just quieten your mind and go in. And I mean, I'm sure you found that yourself in your own practice as well.
Absolutely.
It has kind of guided you in ways that you wouldn't have expected.
Certainly. Yeah. The reality is you can't outsource happiness and you can't outsource well-being. It's an internal job.
Yeah.
And happiness or fulfillment is the experience of actually being present here in the moment, being connected to your deepest desires to express yourself creatively and be uninhibited by fear, doubt, insecurity, shame, and all of this stuff that stops us being fully expressive of who we are. If we're having that experience, then we are fulfilled. Fulfillment isn't the acquisition of something.
Yeah.
You know, fulfillment is our nature, actually. And so the way and means of gaining access to that experience is through turning our awareness inward. And fortunately, there are, you know, some really wonderful and tried and tested techniques. I'm talking thousands of years tried and tested techniques that elegantly lead us into the experience of our deepest nature without having to confront our intellectual boundaries or barriers that stop us from really experiencing ourselves. The experience of meditation and making contact with this deeper nature is actually quite spontaneous if we know how to create the right conditions.
Sure.
And this is what a technique is. You know, think of meditation more as a mental process where one is able to lead their attention inward quite spontaneously, quite effortlessly, and make direct contact with a deeper experience of the self that's beyond the frenetic thinking mind.
Yeah.
And so,
and could you tell our viewers, you know, one of those techniques, just getting really practical about it? I know we're going to do that on our site over the coming weeks, but just even now, for people who haven't meditated before, could you just give us a really practical example of how we do that?
Well, what I'd rather do, as you know, I have an app.
Yeah.
My organisation, One Giant Mind, which is a charity, it's a not-for-profit here in Australia and in the States.
Yeah.
We're dedicated to teaching as many people to meditate as possible, popularising it, extracting all of the woo-woo and the kind of the frilly stuff that might make people go a bit, you know, just making it a very practical, tangible exercise that can be normalised and integrated into daily life.
Yeah.
And we've created a program that's delivered on a smartphone app.
Yeah.
It's available in the App Store and Google Play, and it's a very comprehensive program. It's a 12-step Learn to Meditate course backed with a 30-day challenge, and in it is a whole bunch of resources, articles, videos, journals, timers, everything that you need in order to, one, learn how to meditate, and two, integrate it into your daily practice, because learning to meditate is actually really easy.
Yeah.
It's making it a daily habit, breaking the old habits of ignoring yourself and doing other things that are more of a distraction more than a connection. And so we really go a long way in the app to show you how to make it a daily habit.
Yeah.
And you'll find, you know, after the first few days, that meditation is one of the simplest things that you can learn.
Yeah.
It really is. And if you've got the correct technique and a teacher that can instruct you, unfortunately, my teachers have been some of the best the best teachers in the world. And I'm very fortunate to have this knowledge to be able to share in this particular way.
Yeah, great.
And so you'll find it very gratifying. You'll find that you're going to get benefits from it immediately, along the lines of having increased energy, increased focus, more capability of just being present. You'll find yourself being less reactive, and more compassionate, more considerate. That's just in the early stages, and then as you continue progressing, what you'll notice is you start to become familiar with how you react to life. And the way that you do that is by witnessing, and you're going to notice that you're going to be able to observe the kinds of reactions that you have to life and make a choice as to how you want to act on those reactions. And really, the most crippling thing for us is finding ourselves involuntarily reacting, having no control about how we react to people, situations, circumstances, and sometimes it can cloud our day or weeks on end. And so what meditation does in this early stage is it enables you to reclaim the power so you have choice how you're going to respond to life. And so life becomes a little bit more enjoyable, a little bit more creative, a little bit more interactive as opposed to reactive. And so you'll learn all of this in the app. It's really, really simple and it's free.
I'm on day 6 of the app now and I'm finding it really beneficial. Even just to bring down the kind of freneticness, the busyness of my mind, which it can be at times. So it's just, even on day 6, I'm already noticing a difference. So I really encourage you all of you smartphone users to go get the One Giant Mind app and keep an eye out on A Lust for Life over the coming weeks. Jonni has really kindly written some content for us to guide your way through, just with tools, with resources to help you cultivate a daily meditation practice if you're up for the challenge. So thanks so much, everyone. And also just check out our Facebook or Twitter. Let us know how you're doing, what's working for you. Are you finding it beneficial? Keep in contact with us. And happy meditating.